This session is going to focus on grade 2 and all the different activities using the place value disc that align to the standards that you're teaching. While we know that different states are going to have different standards, the numbers in second grade pretty much range between 999 and all the way up to 1200, or somewhere in between there. You're going to be using the place value mat that actually goes from ones to thousands, which also means then that in a second grade, you're actually going to introduce the 1000 disc. So now you've got 4 different discs, ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. So let's just take a look at this number. If I wrote this number on the board and I asked students, I want you to take your place value disc and I want you to represent for me the number 604. 604. Notice that I did not say 604. It's just 604 because we're not working with decimals in second grade, which is the word and. And that's something that I had to work on for sure as an East Texas girl because I had heard that my whole life, 604. So here we go. We're hoping by this point that kids in kinder and first grade have had enough of work with the place value disc and mats that they will say, well, if it's 600, then I'm only looking at my hundreds column and I need 6 of those discs. Notice I'm going to be building as if I'm building a 10 frame because every time that I find a bundle of 10, that's where I get to do my trade and make only one disc. And we'll talk about that a little later. But kids coming out of grade 1 certainly have had that experience before they get to you. Okay, so now we've got 600s, 4. So which number is in the tens place value? You can see it's the 0. Which number's in the ones place value? You can see it's the 1. Okay. So I have 4 of those ones. If that's confusing to kids, you can see that I sometimes turn these discs over where they focus on there's 4 ones. I could turn these over where they focus on there's 6 hundreds, not 600 hundreds. So you're really only counting the disc. 1, 2, 3, 4 ones. Okay. So if I wrote this out, which I always record, that this was 600s, and this was 0 tens, then what you're leading to is decomposing this number and writing it in words by place value. You also know that the number 600 is 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. And how do we write the numeral 600 or the number 600? That's how we write it. But that is the quantity of those 6 100 discs. How do we write 0 tens? It's just 0. How do we write 4 ones? It's just 4. So then if I'm going to add these together, which you've now noticed that this is actually the standard form of that number, we end up with, this is the expanded form of the number, and we end up with the standard form of 604. So just by having kids practice making their numbers, we've gone through quite a few standards that are mentioned in your standards. And I call that kind of like a high ceiling thinking, like I am putting a lot of thought together and asking my grade 1 students to be accountable for that. Okay, let's take a look at another one, just one more. What if I wrote this number on the board? Well, what does this number say? It says 700. Well, what does that mean, 700s? Well, it means I need 7 of these orange discs in my hundreds place value, which also shows the number orange. So I've got 7 of them in the orange. I need 2 of them in the tens because I've got 2 tens. And I need 3 of them in the ones because I have 3 ones. Now notice this time I did turn the disc over. Well, what do you see? you see 7 hundreds. You see 2 tens. You see 3 ones. So if I ask the question right now, what number is in the tens place value? You would hope kids would say 2. But if I ask a different question, but sounds a lot like the first one, how many tens are in this number? I wouldn't expect kids to say 2. Because when you have a bundle of 10 tens, we get to trade them for 1 100. Okay, and they came out of first grade knowing that. So vice versa, if I have 1 100 and I move it over here, that's the same thing as 10 tens. Well, if 1 100 was 10 tens, this is another 10 10, another 10 10, another 10 10, another 10 10 10. I would have 7 groups of 10 tens, which was 70 or 7 tens. So really, I have 72 tens. Because 700 is the same thing as 7 groups of 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 1, 2. So 72 tens and 3 ones. This is a real important concept, but it's kind of a difficult concept for first graders. So it's going to take a lot of modeling with these place value discs. But the more that you work, and when we get over into the session on operations, that's where you'll hear me really begin to reinforce that over and over and over. So when I get to a number like 800, what do I really want first graders to know? I want them to know that that's 8 hundreds and no tens and no ones. But I also want them to know that it's 80 tens. So if I put 210 on the board, I want a kid to know that it's 2 hundreds, 1 10, and 0 ones, or it's 21 tens. It also could be 2 hundreds and 10 ones, because remember 10 ones is the same thing as 1 10. So if I took this away and moved this here, it's the same thing. So there's lots of different combinations it could be. The last standard in this session we're going to look at is how do you make a comparison between 2 different numbers? And in your standards it says that we're going to be comparing 3-digit numbers. So the first thing we want to do is we want to build the 100, the 2 tens, and the 3 ones. And by now, these kids are probably just motoring through this. Now, if they want to line these up vertically, that's quite okay too. So I've got 100, 2 tens, and 3 ones. And I'm trying to compare that to 2 hundreds, 1 10, and 3 ones. And we know by making comparisons, we often tell kids to look at your largest place value. Well, right now, I already know I have 100 more than that number. So therefore, this number is greater than 123. Sometimes kids may want to do a lot of the trading, but I think if you just focus on the highest place value is 100. So therefore, I already see that this number has to be larger, because the largest this number even possibly could be would be 199. And if I was making a comparison to 213, it's still right here 100 more. But look, you've got 99. That's only 1 away from 200. I still have 13 more. So using your place value disc, you're going to help kids see that these are really not even relevant to making a comparison, unless for some reason you could trade. But if you're just writing numbers, you're never going to have numbers larger than 9 in any of those place values.